Between the ages of 60 and 80, what you don't say can sometimes matter more than what you do. And there are 7 things you should always keep to yourself. If you're in your 60s, 70s, or even 80s, you've likely lived through moments that most people couldn't even imagine. Wars, love, loss, second chances, 1,000 quiet victories no one ever saw. And with all that life experience comes something powerful. Wisdom. But there's also a quieter truth. Not everything should be shared, no matter how close someone may seem, because some things once spoken can't be taken back. Let me ask you something. Have you ever shared something deeply personal, and later quietly wished you hadn't? Maybe it was a medical fear, or a regret you carried for decades, or a truth you thought someone deserved to know, only to realize they didn't understand it at all. Today, we're talking about 7 deeply personal things you should never feel pressured to share. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting your peace, your dignity, and the sacred parts of your story that belong to you, and you alone. 1. Never share all your health struggles. As we grow older, it becomes almost second nature to talk about our health. Doctor visits, medications, aches, diagnoses. It can feel like a daily part of life, and in many ways it is. But here's something worth thinking about. Not every detail of your health journey needs to be shared with others. In fact, sometimes sharing too much can do more harm than good, not just to how others see you, but to how you feel about yourself. There's a difference between being honest and being overexposed. When you constantly talk about every symptom, every worry, every procedure, people may begin to see you only through the lens of illness. They stop seeing your humor, your wisdom, your strength, and start seeing only the problems. It may not be intentional, but it happens. And once it does, it can quietly strip away your sense of dignity and independence. You have the right to protect your own story. You are not your diagnosis. You are not just a list of medications or medical records. You are still you, complex, layered, and full of life, no matter what's happening inside your body. Sharing health information is sometimes necessary, of course, with your doctor, a trusted caregiver, or a loved one who truly needs to know. But beyond that, you get to decide what's yours to hold and what's theirs to hear. And sometimes, when you keep certain things to yourself, it's not about secrecy. It's about self-respect. It's about not letting your illness become your identity. You can still acknowledge your challenges without letting them define you in every conversation, every introduction, every phone call. Because the truth is, even as your body may slow down, your spirit doesn't have to. And protecting your inner strength might start with protecting the most personal parts of your journey. 2. Never reveal the full extent of your finances. There's a certain peace that comes with getting older, a deeper understanding of what money can and can't do. You've worked hard. You've saved. You've made sacrifices. And by now, you probably have a clearer sense of what financial security means to you. But here's a truth that too many people learn the hard way. Not everyone needs to know what you have, or what you don't. In fact, the more people know about your finances, the more vulnerable you may become to things you never expected. Pressure, judgment, or even quiet manipulation. The reality is, when others know the full extent of your savings, your income, your retirement plans, or your estate, it can shift how they treat you. Some may start making assumptions about what you can afford or what you should be giving. Others may see opportunity, whether it's subtle or direct, to ask for favors, loans, or even help that feels more like obligation. And sadly, even among family, money can create tension, resentment, or entitlement where there once was love. That doesn't mean you shouldn't ever talk about money, but it means you should be selective, very selective. Share financial details only with people who truly need to know. A trusted financial advisor, a spouse or partner, perhaps a responsible adult child if you're planning your estate. But beyond that, Your finances are your business. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting something that took you a lifetime to build. And let's be honest, money is more than numbers on a page. It represents years of effort, of worry, of late nights and early mornings. It's tied to your self-worth, your independence, your legacy. That's why financial privacy isn't about secrecy. It's about boundaries. It's about making sure your generosity isn't taken for granted, and your silence isn't mistaken for permission. You have nothing to prove to anyone. Whether you have a little or a lot, your worth is not measured in dollars, and your peace is priceless. 3. Never share. Every detail of family conflicts. Family is complicated. It always has been. No matter how much love there is, every family has its share of tension, misunderstandings, and moments we wish we could erase. As we grow older, we carry those memories with us, the arguments that left scars, the silence that stretched too long, the words that were said and never quite taken back. And sometimes, especially when we're feeling hurt or lonely, there's a temptation to open up about it all, to tell someone everything, to finally let it out. But here's the truth. Not every detail of your family's conflicts needs to be shared. In fact, some are better left resting quietly where they belong. When we speak too openly about family problems, especially to outsiders, we may feel momentarily relieved, but there's often a cost. The person listening may not understand the full history. They may judge too quickly or take sides without seeing the bigger picture. And once those words are out in the world, they can't be taken back. Stories get repeated, opinions get formed, and suddenly a private hurt becomes a public narrative. Sometimes it doesn't bring clarity or healing, it just creates more distance. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about protecting the parts of your family story that are still healing, or perhaps never will. Because even if someone hurt you deeply, even if the relationship was strained or broken, that pain is still yours. It deserves to be handled gently. Sharing it widely may feel like release, but it can turn sacred wounds into gossip, or reduce people you once loved to nothing more than their worst moments. Instead, if you need to speak, choose someone who can hold your story with care. A counselor, a trusted friend, or a spiritual guide. Someone who listens without judgment or agenda. And when you choose silence, let it be a silence rooted in wisdom, not fear. You are not obligated to explain or justify the past to anyone. Some things belong to your heart alone. And that's not cold or distant. It's dignified. Because in the end, protecting the people who hurt you doesn't mean you weren't hurt. It just means you're choosing peace over pain, grace over gossip, and healing over bitterness. Nota 4. Never share all your regrets. As the years go by, we all gather regrets like leaves in autumn, quiet reminders of moments we wish had gone differently. A missed opportunity, a word left unsaid, a decision made in haste, a path not taken. Regret is part of being human. It means you cared, you tried, you lived. And when you're older, those regrets can sometimes grow heavier, not because the moments themselves were so big, but because you've had so much time to think about them. It's natural to want to talk about these things, to share them with others in the hope of release or understanding. But be careful. Not every regret is meant to be spoken aloud. Some are better held close, not because they are shameful, but because they are sacred. You see, when we speak our regrets too freely, especially to people who haven't walked the same roads we have, we risk being misunderstood. What was once a private sorrow becomes open to interpretation. People might see your past through a lens of pity, or worse, judgment. They may offer quick advice or shallow comfort, not realizing that what you're sharing isn't a question that needs answering. It's a wound that needs space to breathe. And sometimes, when you name your regrets out loud, you give them new life, a second wind that keeps them from settling peacefully into the past. You don't owe the world a full confession. You don't have to spill every sorrow to feel whole. Some regrets are not meant to be unpacked in conversation. They are meant to be transformed quietly, within, through reflection, through prayer, through forgiveness, especially the kind you offer yourself. Because the truth is, we all did the best we could with what we knew at the time. And if we had known better, we would have done better. That doesn't make the regret disappear, but it softens the sting. It lets you hold it with compassion, not shame. When you choose not to share certain regrets, it's not a sign of weakness or denial. It's a sign of strength. It's a quiet promise to yourself that the past no longer owns you, that you are not defined by your mistakes, but by your growth beyond them. Your life, in all its imperfections, is still a beautiful story, and you are allowed to keep some chapters to yourself. 5. Don't discuss your estate plans prematurely. As we age, the thought of what we'll leave behind becomes more present, not just in terms of memories or values, but in practical matters: homes, savings, possessions, and the quiet details that make up a lifetime's worth of work. It's natural to want to bring your family into that conversation. You may feel a sense of duty to explain your decisions, to offer clarity, to prepare others for what's to come. But sharing too much, too soon, before your plans are finalized and your own heart is truly settled, can lead to confusion, resentment, and unintended harm. Estate planning is not just about numbers and names on a piece of paper. It's about legacy, trust, and peace of mind. And that kind of peace deserves careful timing. When you speak about your estate prematurely, even with good intentions, you may invite opinions before you're ready to hear them. Children or relatives may react emotionally, some with gratitude, others with quiet disappointment, and some, sadly, with entitlement. And once those expectations are out in the open, it becomes harder to make changes, even if you later feel they are needed. What was once your personal decision starts to feel like a public negotiation, and you begin to carry the emotional weight of managing others' reactions, rather than simply focusing on what feels right to you. The truth is, you are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to think things through, to speak with professionals, to reflect in private. You are not obligated to explain your choices before you're ready. Your estate plan should reflect your values, your priorities, and your sense of fairness, not pressure, not guilt, and certainly not fear. And if one day you do decide to share those details, let it be after the documents are signed, the decisions are firm, and your heart is at peace. That way, you're not just passing down money or property. You're passing down clarity, stability, grace. You've worked your entire life to build something meaningful. You have the right to shape how that legacy is handled without outside influence clouding your judgment. Waiting until the time is right isn't secrecy, it's wisdom. Because sometimes, silence is the kindest thing you can offer, not just to others, but to yourself. 6. Never share your deepest fears. Fear is something we all carry, no matter how old or wise we become. But as the years go on, our fears begin to shift. We no longer worry about promotions or popularity, but about things that touch us more deeply. Our health, our independence, the possibility of being alone, the reality of saying goodbye. These are quiet fears, tender fears. And while it may seem like sharing them openly would bring comfort or connection, the truth is that your deepest fears deserve more than just being heard. They deserve to be held with care. And not everyone is capable of doing that. When we share our most private fears with the wrong people or at the wrong moment, we may find ourselves feeling even more alone. Some may brush it off with empty reassurances. Others may respond with discomfort, or worse, with silence that makes us regret we ever opened up. What was meant to be a moment of vulnerability becomes a moment of exposure. And the fear, instead of feeling lighter, feels heavier. because now it lives outside of you, misunderstood or minimized. There is nothing weak about fear. In fact, the older you get, the braver you've had to be. You've faced loss. You've watched people you love grow old, get sick, or pass on. You've stood in rooms where you were the oldest one left. That takes courage. But not every part of that courage needs to be explained or examined. Sometimes, protecting your deepest fears means honoring them as sacred. It means speaking them, if you must, only to someone who knows how to listen without needing to fix, who knows how to sit with silence without trying to fill it. And sometimes, you don't need to say the fear aloud at all. Sometimes, you simply need to acknowledge it, let it pass through you, and carry on. You can still live fully while being afraid. You can still laugh, love, and create even with uncertainty in the background. That is the quiet heroism of growing older, not the absence of fear, but the grace of carrying it wisely. Your fears do not make you less strong, but choosing to guard them, to shelter them from misunderstanding or mishandling, is a form of strength too. You do not need to expose every wound to prove you've survived. You already have. 7. Keep end-of-life wishes private until the right moment. There comes a point in life when we begin to think, not in fear, but in quiet acceptance about how it will all end. Not just the physical ending, but the legacy we leave, the way we want to be remembered, and the choices we hope will be honored when we are no longer able to speak them. These are deeply personal thoughts, whether about burial or cremation, about what to do with our belongings, or even the kind of music we want played at a memorial. And while it might seem like a relief to share all these wishes with others early on, especially family, sometimes speaking too soon or too often invites confusion, discomfort, or even unintended pressure. End-of-life decisions are not just practical, they are emotional, and they deserve to be made in peace and shared only when the time is right. When we speak about these matters too casually or too frequently, loved ones may not know how to respond. Some may resist the topic altogether, out of fear or denial. Others may hear your wishes, but twist them through their own lens of guilt, obligation, or anxiety. And once the words are out, they often linger, shaping how people interact with you, not as someone living, but as someone preparing to leave. That subtle shift in dynamic can be painful. You deserve to be seen for the life you still hold, not just for the farewell you are planning. That's why it's often wiser to plan quietly first. Write things down. Speak with a legal advisor, a doctor, or someone who can help you make your wishes official and binding without emotion clouding the process. And when you do decide to share your plans, choose a moment of calm, not crisis. Choose a setting of love, not obligation. Choose people who are capable of hearing what you're saying without rushing to change it, dismiss it, or make it about themselves. Your wishes are not a burden. They are a gift, a way of saying, I've thought this through, so you won't have to guess. But even a gift should be given with care and at the right time. Until then, you are allowed to keep those decisions close. You are allowed to sit with them in silence, shaping them with clarity and intention. And when the time comes, you will know. Because the end of life, like every other chapter before it, deserves your voice, but it also deserves your timing. As we reach the end of this conversation, I want to leave you with something simple but powerful. At this stage in life, you've earned the right to choose silence when silence brings you peace. You've earned the right to hold parts of your story close to your heart. Not because you are hiding, but because you are honoring the journey you've walked, the lessons you've learned, and the strength it took to carry them. There's a kind of quiet dignity in not telling everything, in keeping certain memories, fears, regrets, and plans for yourself, in choosing not to speak simply because someone asks, or because the world expects you to be an open book. The truth is, you are still the author of your story, and not every page is meant to be read by others. What we don't say is just as powerful as what we do say. And when we protect the things that matter most, our peace, our privacy, our inner world, we're not closing ourselves off. We're simply choosing what deserves to be shared and what deserves to be kept sacred. If any part of today's video spoke to you, I invite you to reflect. Is there something you've learned not to share? Something you've chosen to keep close, not out of fear, but out of wisdom? If you feel comfortable, share it in the comments. Your story, your perspective, might gently touch someone else who needed to hear it. And if this video gave you even a moment of comfort, or clarity, or strength, I'd be honored if you'd take a moment to like, subscribe, or simply come back again. Because here, you are seen, you are valued, and your voice, whether spoken or held in silence, matters deeply. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, take care of your heart, your peace, and the story that still belongs to you.